For centuries, New England has been the vacation hotspot for leaf peepers, skiers, and lovers of the small, quaint lifestyle that can be found here. Many are aware of the rich historical events that have occurred within these states. However, in this series, we will be discussing the lesser-known tales of murder and mayhem, leaving you with one question. Do you know the tales of your town's past? The year was 1987. The victims were pregnant mother and teacher Priscilla Gustafson, age 33, and her two children, Abigail, who was 7, almost 8, and William, who had just turned 5. They were murdered on December 1st. Priscilla was discovered in the bedroom by her husband. It was 5 p.m., and Andrew Gustafson had just gotten home from work. It wasn't until police arrived on the scene that they discovered the children. The murderer, Daniel LaPlante, was apprehended 2 days after the murders. Daniel was a troubled individual. He was born and raised in Townsend, Massachusetts, a small town with a population of about 8,000 at the time. Daniel LaPlante was both physically and psychologically abused, which most of the abuse came from the hands of his own father. But Daniel's father was not the only adult in his lifetime who abused him. In school, he struggled and eventually was diagnosed with dyslexia. Other children called him creepy and weird due to his poor hygiene and lack of social skills. He eventually was referred to a psychiatrist because of his struggles both academically and socially. Unfortunately, the psychiatrist also abused Daniel. Judge Robert Barton, who presided over LaPlante's murder trial, called him a time bomb. In essence, Daniel was an outsider. With a combination of his severe abuse, learning difficulties, and the social ostracization that occurred during his childhood, it was only a matter of time before he crossed the line from larceny to murder. When Daniel LaPlante murdered the Gustafson family, he was only 17, but developed quite the rap sheet. As he was a minor, the specifics of each crime are unknown. Here's what we do know. Daniel LaPlante was known for terrorizing his burglared victims. He would move items around and leave some things behind so then his victims would know that their home, their safe spot, wasn't the sanctuary that they once thought it was. In 1986, Daniel LaPlante got his hand on a phone number he believed belonged to a house that he had previously broken into. This may not be the case, sources are conflicted. The phone number belonged to the Andrews family. The Andrews family was made up of single father Brian and his two children, Annie, who was 15, and Jessica, who was 8. When Daniel called the house, he usually talked to Annie. They went to the same high school. During the date, Daniel learned of Annie and Jessica's mother's passing. She had died recently from cancer. At first, this was fine with Annie, because she wanted to talk about it with someone. The death was recent, and she hadn't yet been able to move on. However, Daniel crossed a line, and Annie saw it as a red flag. Annie later stated that it seemed as if Daniel was obsessed with her mother's death. She excused herself early from the date, and unsurprisingly, Annie Andrews declined a second date with Daniel. Sometime after the failed date, Annie Andrews and her sister Jessica decided to have a seance in their basement to try and communicate with their dead mother. The girls went to bed believing it was unsuccessful, but later that night, they heard tapping on their walls. The girls were elated, but kept the news from their father as he was skeptic and didn't believe in such things. The noises escalated, though, and soon the girls no longer believed it was their mother's spirit communicating with them. They believed they had somehow conjured up an evil spirit into their home. One day, while their father was at work, the girls went into the basement and discovered a gruesome message. Written on the walls were the words, "I'm in your room. Come find me."
The girls were understandably terrified and called their father. Brian rushed home from work, and when he saw the message for himself, he called the police. When police searched the house, they couldn't find the culprit, but did discover that the message was only written in ketchup.
The wall tapping continued for several weeks. One day, the girls and their father came home, and Daniel LaPlante was hiding in their closet. He jumped out of the closet and chased them into a bedroom where they escaped through a window. LaPlante was wearing the dead wife's wedding dress, wielding a hatchet, and his face was painted in camouflage.
Police were called to the scene, and when searching the house, they found another ketchup message reading, "Marry me." The Andrews family vacated the home while police searched for Daniel. They found him 2 days later, hiding between the walls. Daniel LaPlante had been living in the walls and crawl spaces for 2 months, with food and clothing stored with him. On December 8, 1986, Daniel LaPlante was charged with both kidnapping and assault. He was then sent to a juvenile detention center for 10 months.
On October 9, 1987, Daniel LaPlante was released from the juvenile detention facility to his mother Elaine and stepfather David Moore at 22 Elm Street. His case was moved to Air District Court. His mother Elaine posted his $10,000 cash bail. He was due back in court on December 11th, 10 days after he killed the Gustafsons.
For most people, December 1st is just another regular day. For the friends and family of Priscilla, Abigail, and William, it's a day that ends in blood and horror.
When Andrew Gustafson arrived home on December 1st, he was already on heightened alert. He had tried calling his wife earlier in the day, to no avail. You see, he had just gotten a promotion at work and wanted to take his wife Priscilla out to eat and celebrate. Andrew called her around 3 to see if she could get a babysitter for the night for William and Abigail. When no one answered upon arriving at home, his worries increased. Andrew walked upstairs, and when he entered his bedroom, he saw his wife's dead body laying on their bed. Priscilla had been shot. A pillow laying on top of her was used to muffle the gunshot. Andrew called the police, staying with his wife. When the police arrived, they found little 5-year-old William drowned in the upstairs bathroom and 7-year-old Abigail drowned in the downstairs bathroom. In court, when asked why he didn't search for his children after finding Priscilla, Andrew would testify that he was too scared of finding his children dead too. As if the murder of a pregnant schoolteacher and her 2 young children wasn't bad enough, a chemist by the name of Carolyn LeClaire found conclusive evidence that proved that Daniel LaPlante gagged and raped Priscilla before killing her. LeClaire discovered a saliva-dampened sock, which is consistent with having been used as a gag. LeClaire also found 7 ligatures, such as a necktie, stockings, and pantyhose. These would have been used to tie or restrain Priscilla Gustafson. Semen and sperm cells were discovered on the bedspread, a partial condom on the floor, and in the kitchen trash, police found pieces of cut-up porn magazines. Abigail suffered from blunt force trauma to the head, compressions of the neck, and it was determined that she was choked first and then drowned. Abigail was covered with bruises and scratchings all over her body, which suggests that she fought back. In fact, Daniel was caught because little Abigail fought back against her killer. Through trial by jury, Daniel LaPlante was convicted of 3 counts of first-degree murder. He was 18 at the time, and Judge Robert Barton sentenced him to 3 consecutive life sentences with no parole.